Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I hope you all had a great week. I'm just going to get right into the encounter stories today, but let's get started with a shameless plug first. Enjoying the content? Then don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It helps to support the channel, and you'll stay up to date with all the latest videos. Join a community of like-minded individuals and be the first to know when new content drops. Okay. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now sit back and relax as we begin with today's episode. A guy named Sam lived in the city, rented a 2-bedroom apartment, but because he hated to be alone, he moved in a lady and her young son. One afternoon, she told Sam she had experienced something and that she was very afraid. One night, while walking to the bathroom, she saw a tall, naked man walk down the hallway and turned into the kitchen. Sam asked, "Where did the tall man start?" She said it looked like it was coming out of his room. She was terrified and ran into the bathroom. When she exited the bathroom, she didn't see the tall man. Neither Sam or the woman had anyone over. Sam said he felt like he was being watched but dismissed it as it was childish. The lady stayed at the apartment for a few months and nothing else happened to her. She worked second shift and he worked days. Sam would sleep, and when she came home, Sam would wake up to her sitting on the floor in his room. She would just talk away. He figured it would make her feel safe, so he didn't complain. He kind of enjoyed it himself. This carried on for a few months. The lease was up and it was time to move. The woman had rented a place with her new boyfriend. Sam thanked the lady for helping him pay rent and all that good stuff. He also thanked her for all the late night talks and said he was going to miss them. She was confused and didn't know what he was talking about. She said she usually goes to her bedroom. "Why would I be in yours?" she said. Sam had no clue why she would be in denial. Sometime later, he thought about the tall, skinny man and wondered if that is who he had been talking to. Somehow he looked like her. That's nuts. Or maybe Sam lost his mind. A trickster ghost? Demon, maybe. Either way, Sam never slept the same again. I am Sam, by the way. I just changed my name. For this next one here, we're going to Jim's Stomping Grounds, New South Wales, Australia. This one takes place in the 2000s, and it's near the suburb of Forestville. I have encountered the Australian Bigfoot. Here we call it a yowie. The yowie is a Bigfoot-type cryptid native to the Australian East Coast and has a rich history with the native Aboriginals and early white colonists. I don't recall the specifics of this story, but I do recall the encounter vividly. It's something that has stayed with me my whole life. At the time, I played it off as one of those spooky things experienced as a child. But I'm a lot older now, and looking back, it's something that cannot be explained or should not exist. Back in the day, I lived in the French's Forest, the northern beaches of Sydney, when I was young, perhaps around 12 or 14. Early in my high school days in the 2000s, I had a close friend named Josh that lived in Forestville. He told our group of friends that a monster lived in the woods behind his house. As young teenagers, we called BS at friends that age that bragged and made up shit. He dared us to come and stay over at his house. I took up his offer. This is not exactly how it went down, but the gist of the background to this story. His house was built a bit strange. It was on a hill, and the entry to his house was on the upper story of the house. It had a large backyard that backs onto the wooded area. Well, anyways, the bottom story of the house is where we were. His parents' room were on the upper story. There's an internal staircase that connects the two floors, and the bottom floor, which was more like a big room, it had glass sliding doors that connects to the backyard. We were watching TV. I was on the sofa near the stairs, and he was on another sofa near the glass sliding door. The sliding door had curtains drawn over it, due to it being nighttime, and Josh signals to me to get my attention. What I saw was effing scary as F. The glass sliding door were closed, and the curtains were drawn closed. The room we were in had lights on, so I could see the shape of it. I was looking at a silhouette of a thing. It was huge, way bigger than any silhouette of an adult man. It was a silhouette of a large, tall figure. The outline was more like an ape or monkey shape. You could see that it had fur or was very hairy. It was bulky as F. It had tree trunk-sized arms and legs with a massive neck. Just Google Bigfoot silhouette. But this was not a side view. It was a frontal view. It was facing us. It was standing on the other side of the glass door, behind the curtains. Josh stood up and was going to open the blinds. I shook my head not to do so. The thing went away, and I don't know, we just kind of flipped out. We talked about it for a bit, and then we went back to watching TV. At the time, we didn't take it seriously. But looking back, I always think to myself, what the F was that? Well, that's my story. This next one, we're going to the countryside of southern Ohio, and the date is unknown. When I was about 10 or 11, my dad lived in an old farmhouse way out in the country in southern Ohio. I mean, the nearest one stoplight hamlet was about 10 miles away, and the nearest proper town was about 10 miles from that. It was a late 1800s house on about 30 wooded acres. One day, me and my brother, 4 years older than me, are up in the woods with our dog, just tooling around being rambunctious kids. My dad's rule was that the dog had to be with us if we're going into the woods. After a while, we come across what I can only describe as a dilapidated shack, which had to be at least as old as our house. One room with a dirt floor. We went in and found a very old and deteriorated feather mattress, which was laid on the ground, some silverware, and some old kerosene lamps. Being rowdy young boys, we took great pleasure in breaking what was left of the lamp and carving our initials into the wall of the shack. At this point, it's getting to be sundown, so we start back down the hill to the house, but our dog isn't moving. He's fixated on the tree line behind us, and his hair is raised and his head is low. No matter how we called him, he wouldn't budge, and started to growl a low rumbling growl. Then we heard laughter coming from somewhere in the woods. It sounded like a chuckle at first, then a full-on belly laugh. That's when we booked it down the hillside after the initial confusion was replaced by fear and adrenaline as the laughter continued and the dog charged the other way. I heard a commotion behind me about 30 seconds later, and the dog caught up with us, but wheeled back around and stood his ground again, snarling and barking all the while. This repeated till we made it down the hillside and back into the house. I don't know who or what we encountered in the woods that day, but a few things are certain. I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life. Our dog sensed something in there before we did, and he did not like it one bit. And after the incident, he would frequently sit staring at the tree line in the backyard. I've been back to the property since, and it is now overgrown and thoroughly abandoned, which just adds to the creepy and unsettling vibe the place already had. I couldn't bring myself to actually set foot on the property beyond what's left of the driveway. The last time I was there, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Again, this property is pretty far out of the way for this to logically have been a drug addict or something, and it is far and away not the only incident to occur out there. But in speaking with my brother about it even now, 16 to 17 years later, it still slightly rattles us both. This next and last one takes place in the summer of 1995. We're headed to Lane County, Oregon, and the nearest town is Oak Ridge. My encounter was on a summer morning of 1995 in Oregon, east of Oak Ridge, while I had taken my truck and little chainsaw on a firewood run for my camp. Not the usual endeavor for a woman of 50 years old. I had a camp about 20 miles east of Oak Ridge on a forest access road. All the way to the end where the road ended was a grove of old-growth trees more than 250 feet tall. There were 2 large creeks merged, and trout fishing was incredible. Peaceful, quiet, and serene. I've never felt uncomfortable there. I felt watched over. One morning while out on a wood run, I stopped at a spring pond on top of the mountain. At the end of the pond was my favorite place to have lunch. Birds there will land in my hand to take food. Never saw humans in that area. They had no fear. As I was eating my sandwich, looking out over the forest just below me, I saw someone walking towards my position in the distance. It looked to be a person, but as it drew closer, maybe 300 yards away, I realized by the height, the length of its stride, and that it was ducking under the lowest branches of the ponderosa pines, which are the only trees growing in that low altitude. You know how high up the lowest branch of that tree species are? I stood there watching it come closer, no fear in me, just an incredible feeling of awe and joy. It stopped and just stood there looking at me from maybe 50 feet. After a few moments, I raised an arm in greeting, and a few seconds later, it raised its arms, turned, and strode off through the forest until I could no longer see it. To this day, I feel it had caught my scent on the wind blowing past me in the direction he came from. Curiosity drew it to seek me, that human female high in the forest alone. He had no harm in mind for me, or I would not be here. I left that mountaintop that morning with the knowledge that they existed and a feeling of wonder that he came to visit me out there. I have not been to that mountaintop since that day, not because of fear, but because of respect. It is their home out there. I have never told this story, not just to avoid ridicule, but because I could care less if people believe me or not. I'm a great deal of Cherokee. I never spoke of that day because I feared for the safety of the Bigfoot family that lived there. I do not want some yahoos going hunting to kill them, a Sasquatch. I am proud that the Forest King showed himself to me. I am 68 years old now. It's been 18 years since I saw my friend out there, long enough for them to be safe from hunters. That's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you guys enjoyed these encounter stories. That last one was very intriguing. But I mean, so were they all. What did the kids encounter? What was laughing at them hysterically? And I admire that dog for keeping whatever it was at bay, because obviously the kids didn't turn around to see what it was that was chasing them. Anyways, it is time to acknowledge the current OC members. So we're going to start off by thanking Elizabeth, Jim, Diana, and Teresa. Thank you guys for your contribution and your support. Like always, I truly appreciate it. If you wish to learn more about the OC membership program, you can check out the membership video to get a detailed description of all the perks you will receive. Don't miss out on the adventure. Become a member now and join us today. If these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had, then please forward your encounters to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you all for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all my latest uploads. Anyways, guys, have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.